about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Back at the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, gosh, I don't know what is wrong with my microphone today. I think my microphone does not like the show. Okay, stay. A lot of you guys are dating, whether you're Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X, Baby Boomers, and the dating world is much different, much different than it was years ago. And people are more open. They're upfront. They're not going to mess around. They don't want to spend years dating somebody who they're not going to want to end up with. And many people kind of know what they want. And they're going to be direct about it. So interestingly, we're hearing that many people are being asked about their credit scores. They're being asked about their finances. And I talk to a lot of younger people. And, I'll ask them, how's the dating scene? What's going on? Talk to me about it. And they're like, gosh, she always wants to know what money I have. They're always asking me about what I have and how much money I'm going to make. And they're gold diggers. And there can be a lot of individuals where that's really all they're looking for. They just want to be comfortable, and that's what they want. That's what they're looking for. They may not go very far with, some individuals, but you also have individuals who are, look, I want to know that I'm not going to, it's not going to be just a one-income family. I want to, get a little idea of what things are going to be like. And so rather than them emotionally invest in the person, if this is something that's a deal breaker for them, they're finding out about it early. I like the idea of, love at first sight. It doesn't matter if we're poor, living in a tent. I will be with you till the end of time. But, people are pretty realistic now. According to The Hill, a recent survey from the dating app Hilly of more than 2,000 Gen Zs and millennial daters in the U.S. found that nearly one-third said that learning someone has an excellent credit score makes them more attractive. The findings also show that roughly 20% of Gen Zers and about 25% of millennials believe dating apps should allow filters by credit score. The only problem with the credit score thing, you got to be careful, is if somebody doesn't owe, if their name isn't on the apartment lease, if they're sharing a vehicle and somebody is you got to be careful about the credit score, because if somebody never buys and never spends, they're going to have a pretty good credit score. So I would, but here's the thing, all right? You are on a date. You lost your job to AI. You don't have, a lot of finances. Love your apartment. You have a pet. You are looking for a job. You have a degree. You have some potential. You have a trade certificate. You're looking. How do you survive? You like this person. How do you make it to the next date? Well, one is be honest. Because if that person doesn't like you and is just looking for, a financial security, let them go. But, be honest about how, look, I don't try to up talk your income. Tell them exactly. Say, look, this is my background. I'm this. This is who I worked for. Great company. Issue with AI. They, and we're going to be talking about some of the corporations that are canning people. And so I'm sure the average younger Gen Z and millennial are learning on that. They're pretty well researched on that because they're also looking for jobs. And tell them what your plan is. See, if I was on a date with somebody, all right, I don't look at what you're doing now. I want to learn your process. Are you somebody who gives up? Or are you somebody that has a plan? And so for me, I would be studying that plan. And if that person said, you know what, screw it, no matter what, I'm going to get fired. So I'm going to apply for some benefits and, hopefully the title change. Okay, that's gonna not mean as much to me to somebody who said, because I would like ask them. I'm like, that's horrible. What? How do you navigate this with AI in your career? What do you do next? Well, what I'm doing is I'm getting additional certification in this. I researched this. This is apparently where I could go to that isn't being absorbed by AI. And then I could, and so when you start to see that thinking, you're like, okay, this person's a little bit more of a go-getter. So you can salvage a relationship if you're unemployed or if you're struggling financially or on the verge of getting fired. And another thing also is, for those of us that, I had good years and bad years. And, me and my husband in our apartment, that was some of our happiest times. I made it through. You can on your date say, look, I've been living in an apartment, for years. I know how to make it a home, and I am working towards, getting a home. I want to eventually do that, but I don't need a lot of things to make me happy. I don't need a lot of that, and because you do have some people that are spenders, not just women but men. I know a lot of guys where they like to spend, and that's a problem because if they spend, now you're working hard for everybody. That's a problem. Your job to identify if somebody is going to be unhappy with you is to also screen them. You don't want to be investing into 2 or 3 dates and then find out that what that person wants isn't the same the same as what you want. And so you want to filter them out as well. So if you are unemployed, tell them that. No, I mean, you could ease into it. Oh, hi, what's that Liberty commercial? Right. they're on a date or whatever. They're meeting up, from a dating site. And I guess they both mispronounce Liberty. It's so stupid. But, so don't say, hi, I'm Bob. I'm unemployed. That's not going to work. Get to know each other, use your charm. And then, talk about, and you might, initially avoid talking about work. But if you ask them where they work and what they do, they're going to then also ask you, where do you work and what do you do? And whoever you decide to partner with, remember, it's going to be a partnership. So don't just look at somebody you want to have sex with. Who is somebody you could partner through life? Because there are going to be ups and downs. There are going to be periods of unemployment. There is going to be periods of job insecurity and financial insecurity. That's a guarantee. Unless, of course, you're Jeff Bezos. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
back of the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So I'm a little confused about what happened at UCLA, where there was a guest speaker to UCLA Law School, and he was verbally abused, verbally assaulted, called Nazi and F you and signs at him while he was invited to speak to UCLA law students. Now, as a in medicine, I mean, we're taught not to bully. We're taught to not be abusive. And so I wonder if things are changing on college campuses. It's one thing, and I do defend our freedom of protest, our freedom to air our grievances, to peaceful assembly, hold signs, etc. But when you're in the middle of a class or an event, and there is somebody there that was invited to speak to you and talk about all sides, I mean, you're especially when you're a lawyer. Yeah, I mean, who's prosecution and who's defense? I mean, who's you're obviously lawyers need to be able to listen to all sides. You can't, in the middle of a courtroom, tell that person to blank off. Lawyers have to be trained to, I mean, look what happened with my cousin Vinny. When he was like, that's BS, he got in trouble. That was contempt of court. So law students have to be trained to be able to sit through cross-examination or a testimony without being reactive and to be professional. So I'm a little confused. And I did my 4th year through UCLA School of Medicine. And luckily, politics wasn't the way it was now. But whether you're in medical school, whether you're in the military, whether you're in construction or whatever, there's a level of professionalism. And I think we're confusing freedom of speech and protesting with unprofessionalism and assault. I also thought on campuses, we don't bully. I thought we had this whole anti-bully movement where you're different from me. You and I are different. But I'm not going to make fun of you or verbally assault you because you're different. All right? We embrace our differences. You would think the college campuses are supposed to be the beacon of diversity, of acceptance. You can find a home here. But apparently, when it comes to politics, that all goes out the door. And I wonder if the school does have an anti-bullying policy, an anti-discrimination policy, an anti-assault policy. So this is being reported by multiple news outlets. Fox News said that the situation became chaotic when a Department of Homeland Security attorney was speaking to law students at a conservative group's event at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. The speech was hosted by the Federal Society UCLA chapter. James Percival, general counsel of the DHS, was speaking to law students. So this was one of their own, okay? He's an attorney. He's of the same fabric. However, because what he stands for is something different, they didn't treat him not only as one of their own, they didn't treat him as a human being. There were 150 protesters gathered outside the event saying no ICE, no KKK, no fascist USA. That's a rhyme. No ICE, no KKK, no fascist USA. So that's what they were saying. And then inside the event, students were booing him, holding up profane signs. One said, "blank you loser." And then they also set off different sounds on their phones to disrupt. And then they were screaming Nazi at him. And then the disruptors walked out in protest. And so these attacks, I'm just a little confused because in medical school, you could have a patient. Like I said, I had a patient when I was an ER doc in Lake Havasu that had a big swastika on their chest. The only reason why I knew that is because I was resuscitating him. I continued to resuscitate him. We got him better. He thanked me. I didn't ask him why he was Nazi. I took care of him. That's your job. That's how you're trained. And this guy was a Nazi. Did I stop and say F you? No, if I did, I could lose my license. So how are future law students allowed to do that? Let's say this was a liberal group and they had Joe Biden come and there were people in the audience making fun of him and calling him incoherent or whatever. That would be disgusting. You don't do that. We don't abuse people. We don't bully. We allow freedom of speech, which is another thing that I'm really confused of. I don't see how anybody can graduate UCLA law by restricting somebody's freedom of speech. If you are going to be the troops that help defend our constitutional freedom for freedom of speech, why would you limit somebody else's speech? And so the problem we're seeing is it's different rules depending on how you feel. Now, the argument people are making is, well, that person is being unconstitutional. That person is being, okay, if that person is being unconstitutional, then they're being criminal. And even if that's your argument, even criminals have rights. A lawyer should know that. You know, that Tyler Robinson, alleged killer of Charlie Kirk, has been treated nicer than some of these individuals coming to campus to speak. And I'm really kind of, as an academician as well, I don't understand what, if I was teaching law school, I mean, probably the class I would teach if I was teaching law school is how to sit through a testimony you think is BS, how to bite your lip and how to control the anger, how to control, like, let's say you are prosecuting a murderer and you have defense attorneys who obviously go to law school as well as UCLA law school. So UCLA law school is, graduating individuals who will end up being defense attorneys for criminals. That's what law schools are supposed to do. You're supposed to have prosecuting defense, okay? I would probably be teaching the class on how to be professional through a testimony that you think is BS. How you take notes, how you calm yourself down, because if you look like you lose your cool, and that doesn't look good on the judge. But if you're very calm, cool, and collected, and you poke holes in their argument, that's a lot more effective. Who's teaching that then at these law schools? You're also seeing these with nurses and doctors, where you're starting to see online these sort of emotional, irrational outbursts. And you're like, come on, man. I mean, I bring this up. One of the coolest things ever was Ronald Reagan when he was shot and survived it. And he goes to the hospital and he jokes with the doctor and he says, I hope you're Republican. And he says, Mr. President, we are all Republican today. That is the answer that a doctor or a lawyer or anybody should give, where it doesn't matter how we feel. We are going to do the job we're supposed to do. And so I would say, I think a really good homework assignment is on freedom of speech is we're going to allow somebody to speak. And then whoever doesn't allow that person to have freedom of speech fails, because you can't graduate our law school if you're not allowed freedom of speech. I don't know if they still have these, but don't they have debate class? So I remember one of the 12 schools I went through, because I went to a lot of schools because my folks moved, that one school we had to debate. And they would ask us, how do we feel about something? And I was like, well, I don't know. I think let's say animals for research. And I'm like, no, you do not touch animals for research. Might not apply to humans. No. They would say, good. You are now going to debate the argument for animals in research. I'd be like, so what? No, because I'm against it. Doesn't matter. In debate class, we need to see if you know how to debate the other side. So you're split up, and now you have to debate, because they didn't want you to have an easy argument. It was, and you learned how to debate and come up with arguments, and you learned an empathy for all sides. This law school is failing if this is what their students are doing. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Back on the Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So we're coming into graduation season, and I'm very, very grateful that I get to go again to a graduation. Same place that I graduated at, my brother graduated at, my son graduated at twice, getting his bachelor's and master's, and now my other son will be graduating UNLV. We are rebels to the end. Husband went to UNLV. My son's fiance went to UNLV, so we're rebels. University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Love it. Great school. And I'm going to sit there for the hours that a graduation goes on for. And I'm going to be looking at the thousands of kids graduating. And every time I go to a graduation, I just look at the thousands and thousands. And I go, are you all going to get jobs? There's a lot of graduates. And I'm glad they went to school. But it's a little sad because you see them all hopeful and happy. And you know that a lot of them are going to be unemployed for a while. And it's frightening. 2.17 million students are projected to get a bachelor's degree this 2025-2026 academic year. Now, I'm glad they went to school. They didn't just sit in their mom's basement playing video games. I'm really, really glad, or it would have been nice also if they got a trade certification. I mean, we need people with trades. But 2.17 million students are going to be graduating with a degree, which, probably there's about, 10 to 20 million people currently in college. So 2.17 million are going to be in the next few weeks, getting a degree. What's going to happen to them? Interestingly, there's a report from Newsweek looking at the college majors with the lowest unemployment rates. And National University has looked at which majors carry the lowest unemployment rates. And STEM and healthcare fields dominated the top rankings of the lowest unemployment. 8 STEM majors and 2 healthcare majors made up half of the top 20 positions. So for those individuals who might have gotten a degree in I don't know. I know there's no underwater basket weaving, but I hope they have a realistic expectation if they're going to be able to get a job. They say National University's analysis ranked the college majors based on data on unemployment rates, underemployment rates, and projected job growth through 2033. Those in science, engineering, technology, and mathematics fields made up 40% of the top 20 positions. Healthcare majors also had a solid ranking, with 10% of the best positions. Now, I find that kind of interesting with math. I like STEM. I mean, I was STEM because I was a bio and chemistry major. But mathematics, we're going to see AI kind of displace that. So I find that interesting that mathematicians still have a robust career. I hope they do. It's not easy. I could have majored in math. I went through Calculus 3, and then I think I went through analytics. I forgot what followed. I know I did biostatistics, and then there was another math, I think differentials, I forget. And I could have, with the amount of math I had, majored in math also, but I didn't have the time. I had to try to get into medical school. But I don't know what job I would have had, maybe with the exception of teaching math. They say nursing ranked number 1 in unemployment rate because we need nurses. They had a 1.42% unemployment rate. STEM fields were projected to grow up to 28.4%. Business and finance degrees remained solid, projected job growth of 6 to 7%. Other majors with some of the lowest unemployment rates included civil engineering, mechanical engineering, special education, and construction services. So that's a good sign. Now, what about environmental? What about women's studies? What about, well, it depends also on who's in office. So if, let's say, Gavin Newsom wins or Kamala Harris wins in the next election, those fields, there might be this big push to hire. Like, you know how now we're starting to see MAHA officers, where Steak and Shake has now a chief MAHA officer, Make America Healthy Again, to make sure their ingredients are healthy and wholesome, and to try to work towards RFK Jr.'s guidelines. So that's obviously now a rising industry, but that could then change with the next administration. So I know there's a lot of people with women's studies and environmental studies. And here's the thing, too. Yeah, I mean, I told my son, pick a major where you find it interesting. He liked business and finance and accounting, so he went into that. I go, if you really like medicine, then go into that. But if you don't find something interesting, don't. There's a lot of people that really like environment. They find that I took some environmental classes. I found them fascinating. And I liked, we learned about pollution. I liked my environmental science class. I learned a lot. And I also worked for the EPA. So I like that. So, going for that because you have an interest in it, it's really, really hard to get a degree in something you don't like. If you hate math, I wouldn't advise you to get a degree in math. I mean, what's the point if you could barely like it to get through it? And then what, you're going to do it for life when you don't like it? So, I don't mind if somebody has a women's studies and environmental, degree. But what I don't like is if a college is screwing you out of tens of thousands of dollars and you can't get a job with it, but the college pretended you could. That's a problem. So here we are now, at the start of the AI apocalypse. And what are we looking at? Well, according to Newsweek, these are all the tech giants announcing sweeping layoffs in 2026. As you saw in the headlines, Meta has announced in a company-wide memo that it's going to cut 8,000 jobs, which is about 10% of its overall workforce. The 6,000 open positions for which Meta was hiring are now no longer available. Why? Well, because they are able to improve things with AI. Microsoft offered buyouts to about 7% of its American workers, according to an internal memo obtained by CNBC and Bloomberg. So, these announcements, I believe there were 154,000 announcements by different companies, up 15% from the previous year regarding private sector layoffs. So Meta's a biggie. Meta said they expected 2026 capital expenditures to soar up 87% to as high as $137 billion because of increased investments in AI infrastructure to support its superintelligence lab. So if they're going to spend money on AI, why are they going to spend it on workers? Microsoft has a buyout offer. It's going to be open to employees at the level of senior director and below, whose age and tenure at the company total 70 or more. So now they're buying out older individuals. That's interesting. Amazon is going to cut 16,000 roles across the company. In October, they announced it had cut 14,000 corporate roles to strengthen their organization by reducing layers, increasing ownership, and removing bureaucracy. Hence, they're going to have somebody do the job of 2 or 3. Now, I have worked in corporations where I see people sit around And they're like, well, I can't do that. That's not my job. We have another person for that. And I'm like, but we could save money if one person does both jobs. But that is Amazon is going to invest up to $25 billion in Anthropic. And so that is going to build up their AI capacity. Oracle, it has later in March, they sent an email to thousands of employees informing them that their jobs were eliminated with immediate effect as part of a broader organizational change. They believe 10,000 to 30,000 might have been affected by that. Block, parent company of Square, Cash App, and Tidal, is going to cut over half their workforce, about 4,000 jobs. CEO Jack Dorsey, who used to run Twitter, said this was due to new capabilities offered by AI. Salesforce, following several rounds of AI-inked layoffs. The California-based software firm has laid off about 1,000 employees so far. Snap, parent company of Snapchat, announcing 16% of their employees. So the list goes on. So for those of you, graduating, congratulations. I'm really, really excited for you. I hope your dreams come true, and I think you did good. In a very unsettled sort of economy, I think it's smart to try to get as many credentials as you have under your belt. You might as well. Rather than sitting there unemployed, be in school. I think that's great. But, be realistic about what may be out there. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out. And we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So such as many others, millions of people watched the day one of the NFL draft. And, you saw celebrities, you saw, amazing music, the lights, 320,000 people were in attendance. But my favorite part of the NFL draft is Roger Goodell getting booed. Now, if you've never watched a draft, you'd be like, are they booing him? What? No, those aren't boos. They're boos. Take a listen.
Pittsburgh, here we are. better than that.
I mean, and it's funny because a few years ago I was watching it, and see, a lot of times when I would watch a draft, it would be day 2 or 3. So I never got to hear day 1, and day 1 is when the NFL commissioner goes out there, and then I was like, are they booing them? I wrote that on Facebook, and they're like, yeah, it's a tradition, and it happens with hockey. It happens with I find that fascinating. I actually wrote a piece on that a few years ago, and he actually likes it. Roger Goodell has been getting booed for years. And in fact, the booing, what's really interesting is the booing is sometimes so loud that you can barely hear the pick. When he, reads out the draft pick, sometimes he has Make-A-Wish children do it or whatever. But in previous years, it was so loud that you couldn't even hear who the draft pick was because the boos were so loud. In fact, during the 2020 virtual draft, Roger Goodell said he missed the interaction that he had with fans because what they did a virtual draft online with Zoom. So you got to see all the, that said the pick was in, and then in another screen you saw the family of the player, and that would be named, and he's like, go ahead and boo, but you couldn't hear the boos. But he said it's a draft tradition and one I generally enjoy. NHL, NBA draft, the fans actually greet their commissioners with the same fanfare. And so I like it. I think it is absolutely hilarious. I don't really follow Roger Goodell, and I don't really know if I have an opinion on if the NFL is good or not. I really don't like the fact that you have to pay for a bunch of different streaming services just to be able to watch football. My husband's like, why do we still have Disney? Do we need to, continue to stream Disney? Are you done with Mandalorian? No, I still haven't finished Mandalorian because it starts to stink a few seasons back. But now with Disney, you get Hulu and ESPN. And since I would like to watch sports on ESPN, I need the Disney package. And so I'm paying for Prime. I'm paying for Disney. Do I have a sports package also? No, because I'm paying for so much. So, if that's with the NFL, that's a problem. I have an issue with that. But the draft was pretty cool. 320,000 attendees. It surpassed the previous first-day record of 275,000 in Detroit. Over the 3 days, they're expecting 500 to 700,000. And, one thing I like when I watch that is, you see people of all teams. I want to know, though, how that works. How does every team's fans get there? Because if it's expensive to travel and then to go to the draft, to get the draft tickets, how do they find enough people to show a big crowd? Obviously, there were tons of Steeler fans because it was in Pittsburgh last night. But I'd like to kind of know how that works because every team is represented there by fans, and the cameramen know where they are. So they, which by the way, if you want camera time, that's what you do. You get your butt to the draft, make sure you're in the most ridiculous gear. Yeah, and then you get yourself, like I was watching, for Cowboys. Cowboys got 2 draft picks yesterday. And there was one guy with these blue lights on his head and some guy with a wrestling mask. But I was pretty excited. Fernando Mendoza's coming to the Raiders. We all expected that. The QB from Indiana, Heisman Trophy winner. I really like this kid. David Bailey, edge from defensive edge, Texas Tech, going to the Jets. Jeremiah Love, running back from Notre Dame, going to the Cardinals. Carnell Tate, wide receiver, fantastic. I love Carnell Tate. Ohio State wide receiver going to the Texans. Arvell Reese, edge, defensive edge, going to New York Giants from Ohio State. The Kansas City Chiefs was able to upgrade their picks. Dallas got Caleb Downs, safety from Ohio State, and then they also got Malachi Lawrence, defensive edge from UCF. They're not going to get another QB. I mean, I do think we need a good, backup quarterback for Dak. Sack Dak and Sack Prescott, I like to call him. But that's our O-line problem. So hopefully we also get a better O-line. But we got a little bit of breaking news. NFL icon Lawrence Taylor has been rushed to the hospital after suffering a medical emergency in Jersey. TMZ reported that the Hall of Famer and New York Giants legend is now in the hospital. He had some sort of an American emergency. He was taken to the ER and then transferred to another area of the hospital. He's only 67 years old. Now, sources are saying it's not that serious, and they think he's going to be discharged soon. So we'll see. Hopefully it's not cardiac, but but hopefully it's not serious. But he was part of the New York Giants rise to the Super Bowl and was crowned NFL MVP in '86, received 10 Pro Bowl selections. So we definitely want to see him recover as quickly as possible. One thing that I like the reason why I love football so much is because it takes us a break from everything that's going on. As you know, Trump is extending the ceasefire, although it's not really extended per se because he's still going to be doing the financial strangulation of Iran. And so with the Strait of Hormuz. So hopefully, I think Iranian officials are going to be heading to Pakistan so that there can be some talks this weekend. So we'll see what happens, and there's movements. But, when I saw 320,000 people in that crowd yesterday looking at the draft, and when you saw people, my husband watched a little bit of it. And, there were some people who were just looking like they were, just overwhelmed with emotion, and you're like, okay, it's football. I mean, yeah, you could love football, but I don't want you to faint and have a medical episode as a result. I mean, one guy on camera looked like he was just, hyperventilating. It's like, look, it's okay. It's a draft pick. I know it's important, but we always get excited by these draft picks, and then our team, still struggles. Like that's me and the Cowboys. But I just love the idea that people are not as obsessed with politics as they need to be, that you could have a bunch of people that are uniting because of their team. There's a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers fans who are conservative and a lot who are liberal. It looks like they didn't care. They were all unified yesterday. The Cowboy fans, unified. The Raider fans, unified. I love that. Just a little bit of unification. A lot of drama over Patriots coach Mike Vrabel and his alleged affair with Diana Rossini. Diana Rossini has deleted her Twitter account after more photos have been released. Apparently, somebody took photos of them kissing at a bar 6 years ago, March 11th. I don't know why they held on to them and decided to sell them, but that's what people do now. And Mike Vrabel was the Titans coach at the time and married at the time. She had not, I believe, been married yet. But it looked like they were all over each other in the pictures. This is all alleged. And people ask, what's going to happen to him? Is he going to lose his job? If his teammates if his players like him and he brought them to the Super Bowl, I don't think he's going anywhere. There was a time where your infidelity would get you fired, if that's what happened. And there was ethical clauses in people's contracts. But as Roger Goodell said, this is a private matter. We're going to leave that up to them. It's a private matter. Let the team deal with it. The NFL's not going to get involved, which I actually kind of agree with. I think if he did cheat on his wife, that's ridiculous. That's horrible. If I was his wife, I would leave him. And he's a great coach, and I've been a big fan of him until this. This was pretty crappy, especially since he has a family. And I mean, if you really are in love with somebody, then be with that person and call it quits and don't put your spouse through years and years of cuckolding. But we'll see what happens. But if the players love him, he's staying because they went to the Super Bowl last year. 1-877-LA.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA1. That's 800-JBS-USA1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA1 today.